Hey guys, it's John Ranieri here. I thought I would make a quick little video about music. What is music? How can you avoid becoming, unmotivated about music and frustrated? How can you avoid all of that? And I think one of the biggest problems that I have when people come to me for music lessons is that they're goalless. They just want to learn how to play guitar, or they want to learn how to sing, and they see it as a skill. That's it. They don't have any kind of want to do anything with it, and they don't last very long in lessons because there's no moving forward. They're kind of on my agenda, or I spend most of the time trying to figure out what their agenda is. Like, what do they want to do? What's the point of learning the instrument? And some people do find their point and they become really great guitarists and they enjoy playing music and they love it. So enjoyment, I think, is the last thing that people should look for when they're wanting to play guitar or a musical instrument. And I know that sounds really strange, but if you have the desire and the motivation and you like the fact that it's challenging, you will find that it's rewarding and get enjoyment out of it. Whereas if you're trying to do it for enjoyment and you think it's going to be rewarding, when you get confronted by the challenge and the lack of desire or motivation, these two are going to disappear really quickly. So that's the why. Why should people learn music? Or if you're thinking about learning an instrument, this is what you should consider, the why. Why are you learning an instrument? So then it's the what. What do you do with a teacher when you want to learn an instrument? Well, you play the repertoire or the genre that you want to learn. You can compose your own music, or you can improvise using specific tools that allow you to improvise. Now, there's obviously levels of this. So when you first start out, you'll probably start with playing repertoire for a little bit so you can get your technique up. And you also will learn repertoire so that you can get a body of context, so that you listen, whatever you listen to the most is what you'll be able to play. And I know that sounds a bit strange because usually if you can't sight read, or you're not a particularly good imitator when you first start out, you're often playing based on what the teacher shows you, and often you can pick up most quickly what you already can hear. So if you can relate it back to knowledge that you already have, aka a song, then you'll be much better off learning how to play the guitar. It's like if you really like listening to trance music or dance music, heavy Skrillex, and then you want to come and learn guitar, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle for you because you'll expect something else than what comes out. And that's always a bit of a clash with people in the modern days, that a lot of their favourite songs don't really have guitar in it. They have chords in it and you can arrange it for guitar, but it doesn't actually have the guitar sound in it. So it starts sounding a little less full when you start playing it by yourself, and you expect it to sound produced. Then you can compose your own music. A lot of people enjoy the fact that they gain a little bit of theory, they gain a little bit of technique, and they can then express themselves on the guitar, which is awesome because it means that they're actually exploring the avenue of music as opposed to just being told what to play. And obviously composing is leading on to improvising, and people who can improvise really, really well obviously can compose and play repertoire. So it's kind of the last step in the thing. Although this improvising is a great way to learn how to play music because you don't actually need to know anything. If you like, there's a really good exercise where you just play songs. Sorry, you play a soundscape. So you tell someone, oh, you want to play the idea of silence and express that on the musical instrument without playing chords, familiar rhythms, or arpeggios. And most of them, if they're starting out, won't really know what it means. But if you can improvise and try and portray what you think a soundscape sounds like, it actually helps you to develop the sense of what the instrument sounds like. Because I think a lot of the time people are stumped by technique to play their repertoire, and it can get quite frustrating because you obviously have to have a lot of patience and a lot of hard work to get up to playing a Tommy Emmanuel song, but you can always improvise and express yourself that way. So anyway, and then there's a how. So after you've gone to your guitar teacher, singing teacher, whatever the hell, and you've sorted out your goals, you've sorted out the what, often it'll come down to the how, and this is the exercises that they give you, and it's based on technique, a language to learn, and by that I mean, do you learn best by ear, tab, sheet music, or imitation? So I've never met anyone who can't learn music. Sorry, I've never met anyone who cannot learn music. There's always a medium for them to learn it from, whether it's tab, sheet music. Ear is probably the rarest one, but imitations is usually the top one. So people are really good at imitating what you do and what you sound like. People are really good at reading tab because tab's super easy. They're probably a little bit better at ear than they are at sheet music, but sheet music's easier to develop than the ear. It's all depending on age and whatever, so it's not a strict rule. And then you have knowledge, which is music theory, and if you have a huge amount of knowledge and not enough technique, it's really frustrating for people because you know what you should be playing, and it's about balancing out the two skills. So if your knowledge base is huge because you used to play 6 instruments and now you're picking up guitar or singing, and you don't really know how to use your voice and you don't have the motor skills to control exactly what your knowledge base is, it's this gap which is so annoying because you actually know what's going on and what it should sound like, but what's coming out is completely different. And this is one of the biggest challenges, people having too much knowledge and not enough technique, and it requires a lot of motivation to slow down, and it requires a lot of patience to slow down and work your way through the technique so that it becomes the same as your knowledge. And then obviously the body of context. Alright, so when you guys want to end up at a music lesson, you want to have a nice balance of performing and creating. Now obviously when you perform there's an element of creation, and when you create there's an element of performance. This is what I think is a universal want for most people who come and learn an instrument, whether it's singing or guitar, or ukulele, or whatever the hell, is that they all want to perform, and then a deeper part of them wants to create, but they don't usually have the confidence to do this yet. So I encourage people, when I teach them, to spend a lot of time creating based on a small amount of information. And if they can create based on a small amount of information, they can often perform on that same body of information. And I mean that as in, like, if you give them guide tones, for example, and a chord progression to their favorite pop song or anything like that, you just give them 1, 3, 5, and you tell them, okay, well now we're going to create a little solo for you to play. It's like opening up another Pandora's box of, oh, there's so much opportunity to use these 9 notes of a 3-chord progression to create something that I have complete control over. And they'll often revert back to this performance aspect inside the creation, which is quite funny. So it takes a while for them to get out of the little box, but some people are really good at doing it, some people aren't very good at doing it. But at the end of the day, while they're creating, they're also performing. And that's really the goal, is that if you can get more and more fluent at the performance aspect and the creation aspect and doing all of this, you're going to be much, much happier, I think, playing music and enjoying music than if you just wanted to play a song, or you just wanted to perform AC/DC's Back in Black, or you just came here because you liked the sounds of the Arctic Monkeys riff and you just wanted to learn that. So it's actually a living entity. And if you wanted to get further into the guide tone thing, there's layers that I figured this out very slowly, and it's very obvious, but it took me 12 years to figure this out, is that guitarists are notorious for learning patterns. and they just stick to patterns and that's it. I mean, like, I even wrote a whole book about patterns, and then they don't learn so much intervals, but they can kind of pick up the intervals, and they very rarely learn notes. And they've gone from the basement level patterns up to notes, and it's really hard to get them to go the other way down, to think about notes, intervals and patterns. And I believe this strongly, is that if you start with notes and then you kind of marry the intervals and the patterns later, so if you go top down, you're going to be far better off improvising and creating and performing, because there's an element of thought that goes into it. And if you don't have the thought, you don't have the circle and the shape around anything that you're doing, and it can get a bit weird, because you end up goalless, because you can play 600 songs because they're all really simple, but you're lacking that element of expression. Or you could do so much creation that it's literally free music and there's no structure to it. So the thought is what these lines are, I reckon, is what ties it all into each other, is the thought. So if you're thinking, say it's D minor to G to C, you'd think D, F, A, G, B, D, C, E, G as your guide tones, and you'd practice that. And then when you want to solo over it, you've got 9 notes to use, which will always work, right? So that's the geniusness of it, is that there's not this immense amount of stuff that you have to learn to improvise. You only have to learn the guide tones, and then you can add little flares and flourishes to it later. And most people who are younger actually pick this idea up way better than people who are older. And this is the best way to do it, is to go notes, intervals, and then the patterns, because this is such a crutch for people. It's such a crutch. It's actually really good in singing. Like, if you're going to sight sing a piece, it's good to recognize the patterns, but you're kind of recognizing the intervals first, so you still kind of go in the opposite way. Does that make sense? The only people who really do patterns first are guitarists, and you can tell that they're becoming zombie players because they can't play anything outside of their pattern. And then you listen to really good guitarists, and they enjoy playing outside of this pattern-esque playing, because they can think of the actual notes behind what they're doing. Alright, that's it.